The broken armor, the stranger girl. The repair station was quiet that night. Most workers had gone to rest, but Elias, a human engineer, stayed behind. He liked working alone. Machines didn't lie. Wires and circuits didn't betray. They only needed care, and Elias was good at giving that. He wiped the sweat from his brow and tightened the last bolt on a ship panel when the door behind him opened. A tall figure entered. Her steps were soft, but there was something heavy in the air. She wore a dark cloak that almost dragged on the floor. Her face was mostly hidden by the hood, but Elias could see a faint glow under it. Eyes not human, not machine, but deep like starlight. "I need this armor repaired," she said, placing a large, damaged chest plate on the table. Elias looked at the armor. It was strange. The surface shimmered with patterns he'd never seen. Parts were bent, broken, and cracked. But what shocked him most was the energy still humming inside the core. This was no simple armor. It was built with rare metals and advanced tech. Maybe even royal tech. "This is high-level stuff," he said, glancing up at her. "Where did you get it?" She didn't answer. She just said, "Can you fix it?" Elias nodded slowly. "It will take time." She simply stepped back and sat, in the corner, silent. She didn't talk again, just watched him. As Elias began working, he tried to understand what kind of person wore armor like this. The design was old, maybe from the inner galaxy. But the material was newer, and hidden inside the chest plate was a layer of shielding used only by elite warriors, or royalty. Yet the woman before him didn't act like a warrior. She didn't bark orders, she didn't brag, she seemed tired, quiet. Hours passed. Elias worked without asking more questions. She said nothing. But sometimes he caught her watching him, her eyes following every move. Not with fear, but with curiosity, as if she was trying to understand him. "Where are you from?" he asked. Once she replied, "Far." That was all. Elias noticed more strange things. Her cloak was dusty but expensive. Her boots were reinforced for long travel but polished underneath. And when she moved, she did it with the grace of someone trained to walk with pride, even in silence. Still, she did not act like someone important. She helped him lift heavy pieces. She handed him tools when he reached for them. She didn't treat him like a worker. She treated him like an equal. At one point, the core of the armor sparked, and Elias jumped back, almost dropping his tool. "Careful," she said softly, stepping forward. "That core can still burn." "You could have warned me," he said with a smile. "You learn faster this way," she answered. There was a hint of something in her voice, maybe humor. As the night deepened, Elias felt something strange. This wasn't just another job. This wasn't just another broken thing to fix. This armor had a story, and so did the girl who brought it. When he took a break and sipped water, he asked, "Why do I feel like you're hiding something big?" She looked at him for a long time. Then, in a calm voice, she said, "Because I am." Elias waited, hoping she would say more. But she didn't. Instead, she walked over to the armor, touched the broken edges gently, and whispered, "I need it ready soon." He nodded. "It will be." Before going back to work, he sent a short message to his friend in the nearby city, a data analyst who had access to security feeds and records. "Strange armor brought in tonight. Very advanced. Possible royal tech. Can you check recent bounty alerts or missing persons in this sector?" He didn't expect an answer right away, but it made him feel better, just in case. By morning, he had repaired nearly half the armor. The energy flow was steady now. The outer shell looked new again. He felt proud of his work. But as he turned to tell her, he found her standing closer than before. "You didn't ask for payment," she said. "I figured you'd pay when you could." "What if I can't?" He shrugged. "Then at least I helped someone who needed it." She looked at him strangely, as if she wasn't used to kindness. "You're not what I expected from a human," she whispered. "And you're not what I expected from someone with armor like this." They both stood in silence. But somewhere, far across the stars, a signal had already been sent. A A search was underway, and soon, someone dangerous would arrive. Someone looking for the girl who didn't belong in a repair station, and whose armor wasn't just armor. She wasn't just a traveler. But Elias didn't know that yet. All he knew was that he didn't want her to leave. Strange metal, stranger secrets. Elias had repaired hundreds of suits in his life. Military-grade exosuits, mining shells, even a few black market warframes. But nothing like this one. The deeper he worked into the armor structure, the more confused he became. The outer layer looked worn and scratched, but inside, it was something else entirely. Every piece was made with metals he couldn't even name. It reacted strangely under his tools, sometimes soft like cloth, other times harder than titanium. He turned to the silent woman in the corner. She hadn't moved for hours. She was sitting perfectly still, almost like a statue. Her hood still, covered most of her face, but her glowing eyes reflected the flicker of his tools. "This armor," Elias finally said, "it's not just special, it's rare. Very rare. I've never seen anything like it." She didn't respond. He leaned over the armor's inner circuits again, brushing away broken wires and scorched shielding. That's when he found something hidden between two plates, an engraving, small and nearly erased by damage. He used his tool to clear the carbon dust and read the symbols aloud. "They use this marking for—" He stopped mid-sentence. His heart raced. He knew that crest. It was only found on one kind of armor, Imperial Royal Guard armor. Only the highest class of protectors in an alien monarchy wore it, and sometimes the ruler herself. He looked up sharply, but the woman was already standing now, watching him closely. She didn't look surprised that he found it. She only said, one word, "Forget it." But Elias couldn't forget. Not now. "Are you a soldier?" he asked. "No." "Then how do you have this?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward and placed her hand gently over the armor. The moment her skin touched it, the inner power core pulsed with light. Elias saw it clearly. The armor responded to her, like it remembered her. And that's when he knew she wasn't lying when she said she was hiding something. But she was definitely not telling the whole truth either. Later, when Elias went to his back room to grab more tools, his portable comm pad vibrated. A message had arrived from his friend, the data analyst. Warning. High alert. Missing royal from the Janari Empire. Suspect escaped with royal gear. Cloaked. Possibly hiding in border sectors. Do not engage. She is considered high value and highly dangerous. Picture file attached. He opened the image. The face was blurry, but the cloak and the glowing eyes, they matched. He returned slowly to the workshop and looked at her again. She hadn't moved. But now that he knew, everything looked different. The way she carried herself. The way the armor reacted to her. The quiet sadness in her eyes. She wasn't just a runaway. She was a queen or something very close, and he had already gone too far to back out. "I got a message," Elias said quietly. "They're looking for someone, a royal, with armor like this." She didn't look surprised. "They've been looking since the day I escaped. Why are you hiding?" She looked down at the half-repaired armor and said, "Because I refused to become something I hated." There was pain in her voice, the kind that came from betrayal. But Elias didn't push. He didn't ask her name. Not yet. Instead, he picked up his tool again. "I should stop, you know. If they find out I helped you, I could lose everything. My station, my license, maybe my life." She looked at him with unreadable eyes. "Then stop." He didn't. The sound of buzzing tools filled the air again. "I don't like being told what to do," he said with a smirk. For the first time, she smiled, just a little. It disappeared quickly. By midnight, the armor's core was glowing stronger, more stable. The damage was healing piece by piece. But something else was also growing, something unspoken between them. Trust? Maybe. Or something deeper. but neither of them noticed the silent sensor blinking in the far corner of the station. Someone had just pinged the location. A tracking beacon was closing in, and danger was already on its way. She doesn't act. Like a queen, the title of queen came with expectations, command, pride, a presence that made others kneel. But the woman in Elias's workshop did none of that. She cleaned her own tools. She sat on the cold metal floor without complaint. She even helped him sweep the dust when sparks from his torch scattered across the deck. She didn't act royal. She didn't act powerful. In fact, Elias would have believed she was just another refugee, if not for the way the armor obeyed her like a living thing. Elias tried to pretend things were normal. He didn't bring up the warning message again. He didn't mention the blurry image that looked just like her. But in his mind, the pieces were coming together. And they didn't make sense. She moved like a soldier, spoke like a scholar, watched like a hunter. But when she reached out to help him fix the energy regulator, her touch was careful and warm, not what he expected from someone trained for war. "You're quiet most of the time," Elias said while adjusting a power node. "Talking too much is dangerous where I come from," she replied. "You're not where you came from anymore." "No," she whispered, "but I'm still not safe." Elias wanted to ask more, but something held him back. Maybe it was the way she avoided eye contact when things got personal. Or maybe it was the way she stared out the workshop window, as if afraid of what might appear in the sky. Later that evening, a delivery drone arrived with extra parts Elias had ordered. As he signed for the shipment, the driver gave him a strange, "Look, you get some high-profile clients now, huh?" the man said, nodding toward the workshop. "What do you mean?" Elias asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The driver chuckled. "That cloak she's wearing? It's made from fiber only the royal houses can afford. You don't see that stuff out here unless something's gone real wrong." Elias forced a laugh and waved him off, but the words stayed in his head. Inside, the woman sat near the armor again, eyes closed but not asleep. Her breathing was slow, peaceful. Yet Elias had the strange feeling she could wake and strike in a second if she had to. He placed the last energy cell into the chest plate. "It's almost complete," he said. She opened her eyes slowly. "Thank you. You know, you're not what I imagined a queen would be like." Her face didn't change. "Because I'm not one anymore." "But you were?" "Yes." Elias paused. "So, why not go back? Fight for your throne." She stood up and walked slowly toward the armor. Her fingers traced the edges of the metal. There was nothing left to fight for. I was to be married, off to stop a war. Not because I wanted to, but because my bloodline made it a useful move. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. When I said no, they told me I had no right to refuse. "And so you ran," Elias said quietly. She nodded. "I chose my freedom over their peace." He watched her. No crown, no throne, just a runaway in a borrowed cloak with a past too heavy for her shoulders. But the way she stood, tall, steady, Elias couldn't help but feel respect. Not because she had been a queen, but because she had been brave enough to stop being one. "You still carry yourself like a leader," Elias said. She glanced at him. "Old habits. Hard to kill." "Good. The galaxy needs more people like you." She looked at him strangely, like no one had said that to her before. Then she turned back to the armor. "They will come for me again," she said. "They won't stop." "Then let them come," Elias replied. "You'll be ready this time." She didn't smile, but she didn't look afraid either. As night settled in, Elias finished the final adjustments on the helmet. She picked it, upholding it in both hands. It looked like a crown of metal and light. Heavy, ancient, beautiful. She didn't put it on yet. She just stared at it. "You think I'm not a queen anymore," she said softly. "But I never wanted to be one, in the first place. You may not want the crown, Elias said, but you never stop being strong. Outside the station, something invisible crossed the outer sensor lines. A cloaked vessel. Watching. Waiting. Inside, Elias and the stranger sat in silence. Both, knowing something was coming but unsure what would arrive first. The past, or the price of their growing connection. The hunters are near. The first sign was silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, unnatural quiet that falls just before something breaks. Elias stood near the generator unit, adjusting voltage flow, into the Queen's nearly repaired armor, when every motion sensor in the workshop flickered. No alarms, no sound, just flickered. He looked up sharply. The woman was already staring at the ceiling, her eyes narrowed. "They've found me," she said, her voice calm, but her muscles tensed beneath her cloak. Elias moved to the security panel. All outside feeds were still active, but one zone, Sector D near the landing strip, was blacked out. No feed, no signal. Jammed. "How?" he whispered. "They never stopped looking," she answered. "They only needed time to catch my scent." Elias's heart raced. This was no longer about a favor or kindness. He was now standing between a hunted queen and her pursuers, and he wasn't ready for war. "I'll hide you," he said quickly. "They might not know you're still here." She gave him a strange look. "They know. And if they come in and don't find me, they'll tear this place apart until they do." He clenched his fists. "Then we fight. You'll die. Maybe, but not without trying." She blinked slowly. For a long second, she said nothing. Then, with a motion like silk-cutting wind, she pulled back her hood. Her full face was finally visible. High cheekbones, silver blue skin that shimmered under the workshop lights, and eyes like starlit oceans. Beautiful, yes, but more than that. She looked regal, yes, but battle-worn too. She had the presence of someone who had seen both fire and betrayal. "Don't fight for me," she said softly. "I've lost enough people." "I'm not fighting for you," Elias said. "I'm fighting because I hate tyrants, and because I can't let you go back to a cage." The words lingered in the air. Then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate bangs on the outer door. Not loud, but heavy, like they already knew they'd be let in. Elias looked at her. She nodded once, and then reached for the armor. Only the chest plate and helm were complete. The gauntlets and boots were still being tuned, but that didn't stop her. She slipped the chest plate on over her cloak. The armor latched to her body like it had been waiting. "You'll need time to finish the rest," she said. "I'll buy you that time," Elias replied. Another knock, this time louder. Elias walked to the door and opened it slightly. 3 alien figures stood outside, tall, armored, their faces hidden behind black visors. "We're tracking a fugitive," the lead, one said in a deep mechanical voice. "You're not under arrest yet, but your cooperation is required." Elias shrugged. "Fugitive? This is a repair station, not a royal hotel." The alien held up a scanning device. It beeped. "You had a female visitor, late night, left no record." "Where is she?" Elias smiled. "That armor on the table? Got it from a scrapyard. I fix junk, not queens." Behind him, the queen slowly moved behind a support pillar, keeping her presence hidden. Elias knew this was only a delay. The scanner would ping again. Or worse, the enforcers would enter. He needed a distraction. "I have some drink inside," Elias said. "You can scan while we talk." The lead hunter moved forward, but the second one caught something on his scanner. "There's a royal energy signature," he growled. "It's fresh. No more talking." They drew their weapons, but the woman was already moving. She stepped from behind the pillar, her half-repaired armor humming. In her hands was a weapon forged into the gauntlet, a blade of pure plasma energy Elias hadn't even realized was built into the chest plate. "Leave now," she said. Her voice was no longer soft, it was command, it was queen. The hunters didn't hesitate. One fired. She deflected the shot midair, the plasma blade slicing through it with ease. Elias ducked behind a table as chaos exploded inside his quiet station. Sparks flew, glass shattered. The battle was fast and violent. The Queen moved like lightning, graceful and deadly. Her armor still incomplete, but her skill made up for it. In less than a minute, 2 hunters were on the ground, disabled, groaning. The third tried to flee, but she didn't chase him. She turned to Elias. "We have little time, they'll send more." He nodded, breathless. "Then let's finish your armor and get you out of here." For the first time, she looked at him with something more than respect. It was trust. But neither of them knew. Far above, in orbit, a warship had just arrived, and its orders were simple. Bring the Queen back, or burn everything until she's found. His heart, versus the galaxy, the station, smelled of smoke and scorched metal. 2 of the attackers lay unconscious in the corner, their armor cracked, their pride shattered. The third had escaped, but not without bleeding. Elias locked down the main gate, but he knew it wouldn't hold. The next wave wouldn't knock. It would blast the door clean off. The woman, his queen, though she never called herself that, stood still in the center of the room. Her chest plate glowed softly with restored power, her breathing steady. But Elias saw it, the weight behind her eyes. She wasn't just preparing for another fight, she was preparing for the end. "You don't have to stay," she said without turning. "When they come again, they won't stop at warnings. They'll erase this place. You." Elias walked up beside her and placed the final energy cell into the leg module. "Good. Let them come." She looked at him, not in anger, in confusion. "You're a mechanic, Elias. You don't owe me anything." He met her gaze. "No, but I made a choice. I made it the moment I refused to sell you out. That choice doesn't change just because the enemy's bigger now." "You could die? Maybe. But if I let them take you, I'd be the one who's dead inside." Her expression shifted, surprise, maybe even sorrow, but then it hardened. "You're foolish. I've been called worse." They worked in silence for a while, both focused, both moving faster now. Elias's hands were steady, but inside his thoughts raced. How did this happen? A quiet life, a forgotten station, and now? He was standing on the edge of war, for a woman who didn't even have a name but somehow now had his loyalty and maybe more. At last he asked, "Why didn't you run before, when you had the chance?" She paused, tightening a strap on the repaired arm unit. "Because I didn't want to leave without knowing if I could trust one human in this galaxy." Elias's heart skipped. "And now?" he asked. "Now I know." There was no time for more words. An alarm blared. Elias ran to the terminal. They're landing on the ridge. Multiple life forms, 2 dropships, could be 20 soldiers or more. The Queen nodded. "Then we move now." But Elias hesitated. He looked around the station, his home, his tools, everything he had built. "If I go with you," he said slowly, "I lose everything here." She turned to face him fully. "Then don't." "You want me to stay behind? I don't want you to give up your life for mine. And I don't want to live in a galaxy where people like you are hunted for wanting freedom." The room went quiet again. But it wasn't fear holding them still this time. It was something heavier, something real. She stepped close. Close. Enough for him to feel her warmth through the armor. "You repaired more than my armor," she said softly. "You reminded me what kindness feels like. You reminded me what courage looks like." He placed the last piece, her helmet, in her hands. She held it but didn't put it on yet. Instead, she reached out and gently touched his face. "If you come with me, they'll call you a traitor." "I've been called worse," he said again. This time she smiled. Above them, the sky shook. Dropships roared through the atmosphere. Elias and the Queen stepped into the launch bay where a small unregistered shuttle waited. Quiet, dusty, never flown. "Does this bucket even work?" she asked. He grinned. "It will. I built it from scrap, just like everything else here. Let's hope it flies better than your jokes. They climbed aboard. The engines groaned, then roared to life. Outside, the first blast hit the station. Elias didn't look back. He didn't need to. He had already made his choice, and beside him sat a woman once hunted by galaxies, now shielded by a single stubborn human heart. Together they rose into the sky, two fugitives, one promise, but in the shadows of space, an empire still watched, and it was not done chasing them yet. The final repair, the stars stretched out like frozen fire as the shuttle tore through low orbit. Behind them, the repair station, the only home Elias had ever known, was nothing but smoke and silence. A single blast from the dropships had turned it into rubble. The Queen didn't look back. Elias didn't either. Some things, once broken, were better left behind, but they weren't safe. Not yet. Red lights blinked across the dashboard. The ship was fast, but not fast enough. A cruiser was tailing them. Its signal was faint, masked behind asteroid cover, but the computer had picked it up. They had minutes, maybe less. We won't make it to hyperspace, Elias said, hands gripping the controls tighter. The Queen stood beside him, her armor half-lit, still incomplete. Her breathing was steady, but her fists were clenched. We don't need to outrun them, she said. Just survive long enough. Elias shook his head. Not unless your armor has a miracle hidden in the shoulder joint. She looked at him then. Longer this time. Not like a soldier. Not like a queen. Maybe it does. She moved to the back of the shuttle where he had stored the last unassembled pieces of her gear. The gauntlets, half-wired. The boots, unstable. And the backcore unit, completely dead. It was supposed to power the cloak function, the part that would make her vanish. Elias followed. That's not ready. The wiring's a mess. If I connect the wrong lines, the whole system could melt. Then get it right, she said, because if I wear this half-broken, it'll kill me before the enemy can. He stared at the open panel. The wires inside were glowing with unstable power. His tools weren't meant for this kind of tech. One mistake, and he might fry the Queen or himself. Why are you doing this? He asked as he slowly began adjusting the microcircuits. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, because I'm done running without a fight. The ship shook. A warning siren screamed, cruisers locking on, Elias muttered. They'll fire in 30 seconds. Then give me 20, she replied. Elias worked faster. His hands moved on instinct, weaving wires, redirecting currents, bypassing failed nodes. The room filled with a soft blue light. The armor responded. The energy inside it began to hum, smooth this time, alive. She stepped forward. Are you? Sure, he asked, holding the final circuit pin in place. She nodded. He connected the wire. There was a sharp spark, then a wave of heat. The lights in the shuttle flickered and then silence. The armor lit up. All of it. The Queen took a slow breath. Power now flowed through her suit like it was part of her. She looked stronger, taller. She pressed one panel on her arm. Her form shimmered, then vanished. Cloaking is active, she said from somewhere beside him, invisible. Then she reappeared. Elias let out a slow breath. You're ready. Now you get out. He frowned. What? She walked to the hatch and opened the emergency pod door. Take the escape pod, go now, I'll lead them away. I didn't fix you so I could lose you. And I didn't escape my empire to get you killed. He stepped closer. You're not doing this alone. She paused, her voice softer now. I can't let you burn because of me. And I can't let you walk into fire alone. She looked at him, fully, completely. Why? She asked. Why would you throw everything away for me? Because someone needs to stand with you. And I've already made my choice. She didn't argue again. Instead, she reached out and touched his hand. No more running then. No more hiding, he replied. The cruiser fired. The Queen activated her suit's full defense system. The blast hit the shuttle, but this time, It didn't tear it apart. The shield held, the armor worked, and inside that burning sky, the woman who was once a queen and the man who was once just a mechanic stood side by side. No titles, no thrones, just two souls refusing to fall. The final. Repair was complete, but the real war had just begun. He repaired her armor and won a queen's heart. The stars looked different now, brighter, wilder, more dangerous. But to Elias they'd never felt more alive. The queen sat across from him in the now silent cockpit, her armor fully restored, her cloak recharged, her crown hidden inside a helmet that hummed with layered power. The cruiser had lost them, barely. Thanks to her cloak and Elias's reckless maneuvering through a meteor storm, they'd vanished into the empty black. But they both knew it wouldn't last forever. The Empire never stopped hunting. Not for a traitor, and definitely not for a runaway queen. Elias leaned back, staring at her. Not like a soldier, not like a ruler, just her. "Are you going to tell me your real name now?" he asked. She hesitated, then, "My name is Vale. That's a title." "No," she said, voice quiet. "It's the name I chose the day I left my throne, the last thing they didn't control." Elias smiled. "Then it's perfect." Vale looked out the window. Her voice dropped. "I never expected to escape, I just wanted to die free." "But you didn't die," he said. "No. You changed that." They flew in silence for a while, the engines humming softly beneath them. "You should hate me," she said suddenly. "Your station's gone. Your life is gone. You lost everything for me." Elias looked at her. Really looked at her. Not the armor. Not the mission. Just the woman. "I didn't lose anything that mattered," he said. "Everything I built in that station was metal, cold, replaceable." He pointed at her chest plate. "But this armor, that heartbeat inside it, that's something I never had before." She blinked, clearly taken off guard. "You're not afraid of me?" she asked. "Even now? Even knowing what the Empire will do to those who help me?" Elias stood and walked closer, standing just inches from her. "You wore a crown they tried to chain you to," he said. "But I saw the person underneath, and I'm not afraid of someone brave enough to break her own chains." Her hand slowly reached up. She removed the helmet. Her hair flowed free, silver strands that caught the dim lights like threads of moonlight. "I don't know how to be normal," she admitted. "I don't know how to love like a human." "Then start small," Elias said, reaching for her hand. "Start with trust." Their fingers met. Warm, real. Her eyes, always distant, softened. "What if I fall? I'll catch you," she exhaled. And for the first time, the weight of her world, the crowns, the orders, the sacrifices, fell from her shoulders. She leaned forward. Her forehead touched his. "I fled my empire to save my soul," she whispered, "and found my heart instead." Elias smiled. "I was just fixing armor." "No," she said, her voice gentle. "You were fixing me." Outside the window, stars raced past them, distant and endless. But inside that small ship, where a queen had once come to die and a mechanic had once lived to hide, two strangers had become something more. They didn't need a planet. They didn't need a palace. They had each other. And in the galaxy's vast silence, that was enough.